A girl I know is faking epilepsy. So there's a girl at my school who claims to have epilepsy, and she conveniently has seizures whenever there's an important test. A girl in our friend group was asking her about her supposed epilepsy, and she didn't know what type she's supposed to have. She didn't know what kind of seizures she's supposed to be having, or anything. One of the guys that's new to the friend group followed her on TikTok, and she posts a lot of movie edits, anime edits, and thirst traps, and he said that she probably needed to put trigger warnings for flashing lights on her posts, just saying, to make sure that someone who has photosensitive seizures doesn't watch it, and she got mad and was like saying that she doesn't need to do that. That's stupid to put a trigger warning for that. People like that need to stop being attention-seeking and whatever else kind of shit she was saying. Kinda odd for someone who supposedly has epilepsy to not cater to the epileptic community. In the comments, this girl needs to understand that epilepsy is neurological and cannot be controlled. Ask her what meds she takes, and that she needs to have an EEG because it's really dangerous and she could die, especially if she's having them so often at school. Make it really real, and she'll roll away real fast. OP says, I'll do that as soon as I see her on Sunday for a group hangout. OP responds to a comment about their friend's memories after seizures. She has an excellent memory. She remembers every detail from memories, even from years ago. Her mum should know what kind they are, if it's real, and she never mentions it around her mum, and when she brings it up, she acts like she doesn't know what we're talking about. Another commenter asks, does her mum get notified when her kid has these seizures? Does she get sent home or to the nurse or anything? I'm very curious to find out. My friend in high school had epilepsy, and her mum had to be notified via nurse's office if she started getting auras or anything that told her that she might start seizing. Crazy business that this faking behavior hasn't made its way to her parents yet. OP says, she goes to the nurse and every time. She told the teachers that she's not safe at home and that they don't need to contact anyone but her older sister who goes to the college close by. Another commenter asks, aren't most epileptic seizures grand mal seizures? I could be wrong as I don't have epilepsy. OP says, it's different for everyone, but yes, that's the majority. Wouldn't she get sent to the hospital if she had seizures? I had what looked like a seizure once and it was straight to the hospital as soon as I was conscious. OP says, if someone has a seizure for longer than 5 minutes, then yes, they have to be taken to the emergency room to make sure that there isn't brain damage. All to be young and in high school again, and surrounded by people that will fake things. I'm happy I'm not in high school anymore, but it just sounds like the high school is aware of this shit, and OP should bring it up to the parents and say, hey, are you aware she's doing this? Because I personally think that'd be really funny to see them come down on her and be like, why are you faking epilepsy? What's wrong with you? Where did we fail as parents? Anyway. Update number 1. My friend group was all hanging out, and I brought up that I was going to start driving soon, and said that it was too bad that she couldn't drive for a while. And she was confused and didn't say anything. I asked if her medicine was helping, and she said yeah, it's helping a lot. And I asked her which one it was so my twin brother could try it, and she didn't know the name. I asked if she had a rescue medicine, and she didn't know what that meant. I asked her if she told the school nurse that she didn't have a rescue medicine, and she didn't know that she had to. I told her that I could talk to the nurse and tell them that I was concerned because she was having seizures so often without a rescue medicine, and she said that I didn't have to do that. So I told her that I could request to keep my phone with me in class in case she had another one. I could call the emergency services, and she quickly told me that wasn't necessary. I asked her if there was any kind of repercussions from her seizures, since she's had them for so long and almost every day. And she said that she had a headache sometimes. I told her that she should probably talk to her neurologist to see what they can do about an increase in her medication, and she said she has an appointment next week. And I asked if she needed a ride, and she said her sister would take her. I asked her why her parents can't take her, and she said they don't know about her seizures. So I acted surprised, and I asked if she knew that SUDEP was very dangerous, especially without caretakers knowing about her epilepsy, and she didn't know what that was or how it was dangerous. My friends all looked at each other in a way that we all knew our suspicions were correct. In the comments, did they have PNES? and she just calls it epilepsy? Still annoying, but I've noticed an uptick of people being diagnosed with PNES, and they are proud of it. OP says she's never mentioned non-epileptic seizures. She always says it's epilepsy. How in the world would her parents not know? OP says, for real. It's kinda hard not to know if your child has a chronic illness. Why has the school not done anything about this? Some things they can't do, like accusing her of faking, but have they never contacted her parents about these extremely frequent seizures? OP says she told the school that she's not safe at home and for them to contact her older sister. How old is she anyway? Where is she supposedly getting medicated without parental consent? This is crazy. OP says she's 15 and supposedly her sister is helping her get meds. Another commenter says, as an epileptic, I love that you did this. It's not cool to fake epilepsy and makes it harder for those of us who do have it to not be brushed off. And OP says, I appreciate it. Yeah, my twin brother has epilepsy, and it pisses me off when people try to make a quirky thing like, oh my god, I can get out of any situation I don't want to be in. If they knew what it was actually like to live with epilepsy, they wouldn't wish it on their worst enemy. Another commenter says, is she literally faking seizures in front of you/people, or just saying after the fact that she had one? I'm only wondering because I have no clue how someone could pull off a fake seizure, especially around someone whose brother literally has epilepsy. OP says, yeah, she's been faking them in front of the entire class. I knew it was bullshit from the beginning and called her out from it when class was dismissed, but she argued that she was professionally diagnosed. I'm not one to argue when someone gets defensive, so at the time, I let it go. But she's faked like 3 seizures, and I'm over it. And now for the second update. She texted me this morning before school, asking if my twin brother and I were going to go shopping with the group after school today. I told her no, we weren't going to go today because my brother had some pretty bad seizures this morning, and neither of us could go to school. I had to take care of him while our parents are at work. She asked why he had to stay home if it was just a seizure. I called her and went off on her. I told her that she doesn't know what it's like to have actual seizures and she needs to shut the hell up and stop pretending to know things that she's never experienced in her life. If she saw a real seizure, she would be traumatized, especially if it's someone she loves. Then I hung up. She called me back, crying, apologizing for saying that it was just a seizure and that she didn't mean to offend me. And she also said her epilepsy is different than my brother's and that I needed to stop fake claiming her. She said that I was insensitive to what it means to have epilepsy, and she asked what if my brother was faking it and not her. I interrupted her and asked if she'd ever had an EEG, and she said no. I told her that she would have had at least one if she actually had epilepsy. I told her that she would have missed out on so much if she had seizures as often as she claims, but magically she shows up to every event, every time the group hangs out, every concert, every theme park. If she actually had epilepsy, she wouldn't make it to everything. She went quiet. I told her that if she wants to come over and see if he has another one, then be my guest, but I don't want to hear her cry if she sees him have one. She declined and hung up. We'll see if she drops the act after this, but something tells me she won't. In the comments, she's probably going to start spreading lies about you. I know this high school drama all too well. I hope your brother is recovering from his seizures okay. Sending love. OP says, if she does, I don't really give an F. I'm semi-popular, and I know at least a few people will have my back. Thank you so much. He's doing alright at the moment. We're watching his favorite show right now to help him calm down. Someone else asks, what type of epilepsy is she claiming to have, or does she just say that it's different with no other explanations? I'm agreeing with you that she is faking it, but I always love hearing what fakers say about epilepsy because I have it. And OP says, she doesn't say what type. Yes, this girl is very clearly faking, however, there are very different types of seizures. People can have very quick seizures that do very little harm. And OP says, yeah, I know. My brother has epilepsy, and he's had multiple kinds of seizures, and hers look nothing like any kinds I've ever seen. Lazy Crocodile says, This girl is going to be so embarrassed when she grows up and realizes how cringy and awful this behavior is. One can only hope, but in a lot of cases, they grow up and just double down. I used to be friends with a woman like that who is now in her 40s and still on the same bullshit. Every time I hear about her in passing, I'm like, damn, don't she get tired of the grift? But they don't. It's amazing. Please, whatever higher power is out there, keep people like that out of my life. That's all I'm saying. They sound exhausting. We already have too many people faking illnesses on TikTok and getting called out for it, and then just continuing to fake the illness anyway because apparently people don't have shame anymore. What has the world come to that these people will do it without even trying to get internet fame, without even trying to get clout? Just shameful, deplorable behavior. I hope someone teaches her a lesson for faking epilepsy. There needs to be repercussions for this. People cannot get away with this amount of audacity. Someone please intervene. Can someone please open the door for consequences? We need consequences, finally. Thank you for the story, OP. I'm so glad I'm not in high school anymore. Our next post is by a deleted user, and it's titled, Am I the asshole for no longer making toys and furniture for my former sister-in-law after her new husband called them an embarrassment and me cheap for not paying for stuff? My brother died before his firstborn child was born. Because of this, I've had an above-average involvement in my nephew's life. One thing I've always done is build him toys and furniture. It was a way of providing without the awkwardness of handing over cash. Also, between my late brother's cash and life insurance via work, a trust was set up for my nephew for around £500,000. He wasn't actually married to my sister-in-law. Via the lab at work, I've made him a lot of wooden or 3D printed toys, but also some simple handmade electronic toys. My sister-in-law was always grateful for these, and my nephew, by all accounts, loves his custom toys. Fast forward 3 years, and my former sister-in-law has gotten married. I was attending my nephew's 3rd birthday, and I turned up the night before to assemble his present. It was a small climbing frame and swing set that I'd watched better carpenters than me make in the lab. The new husband was a little standoffish, but come the day of the party, he was telling anyone who listened that I didn't pay or make the present, that I had lackeys at work do it for free. This culminated in him calling all my presents an embarrassment, and given my fancy job, I could afford to splash some cash. I confronted him and my former sister-in-law, and she basically confirmed that whilst the presents were appreciated, she honestly expected more direct support from me after my brother's death. My mother stepped in and reminded her my brother paid for this house, and they regularly take cash out of the trust, approximately £10,000 a year. We walked out without hearing any worthwhile response, but I continued to see my nephew without incident. 6 to 7 months go by, and I'm visiting, only to be told my former sister-in-law was pregnant with twins, and she was wondering if I could make some duplicates of items that I made for my nephew, as they needed 2 sets. I scoffed, said she had some balls asking me to make stuff after she was so ungrateful, and said that I owe her unborn children very little. She got upset and explained her prior statements about my handmade gifts and said that she felt like they were kinda little things someone did as a favor, not what a family provides. That's why she's asking me now as a friend to do her a favor and manufacture duplicates. I said no, again, and her husband shouted through that it didn't matter. They would just use the trust to provide for kids like it's supposed to. I retorted that it was for my nephew, and good luck accessing it for that because the trust requires my signature to pay out. I wasn't even home before he was calling me to apologize, clearly unaware I held the reins to my late brother's money. The apology was insincere, and I asked to speak to my former sister-in-law, where I confirmed again I wouldn't be manufacturing her anything. I'll still be an uncle to my nephew and be impartial when it comes to her accessing my nephew's trust, but her husband has burned a lot of my goodwill with this. Am I the asshole for not doing her a favor after all of that? In the comments, Walk to the Brook says, not the asshole. First, my condolences on the loss of your brother. Your sister-in-law is beyond entitled. She lives in a house paid for by your late brother and benefits from a trust, and then has the gall to criticize your gifts to your nephew. Outrageous. Not the asshole. Sorry for your loss. Your brother was so smart to give you control over the trust for your nephew. That ensures your nephew's position is protected, both financially and in this new family. Sister-in-law's new husband is bad news, and she doesn't seem to have good judgment. If you didn't have oversight on things, I bet your nephew would have been robbed and neglected by these greedy people. OP, you're not the asshole now, and you will be not the asshole when your nephew wants to use his money, but sister-in-law wants to split it amongst the siblings. I'm absolutely speechless. $10,000 a year is a lot to feed and clothe a child living in a house which seems to be paid off. To be expecting you to provide for your brother's kids who are set up like this is just baffling to me. Your gifts sound extremely generous. Does your sister-in-law not work at all? Not the asshole. I'm here with everyone else, and I would say, don't give them a cent more. Wait until your nephew is 18, and then give the trust over to him at that point. He does not deserve to have that money stolen from him, and you can very well guarantee it will be stolen and wasted with this dick-headed asshole that this stupid woman has decided to marry. Now she's having kids with him too, and they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to insult you to your face, say, why aren't you spending more money on us? You're an asshole. These gifts suck. But also, not really going to apologize for that. Also, can you make some more of these terrible gifts that we hate and spit in your face some more? No, absolutely not. They're a pack of bellends, and they should go shove it where the sun don't shine. Not the asshole, OP, and I hope you cut them off from that trust completely. And now, onto the update. So I've had a few requests for an update, so here goes. As highlighted in the comments of my last post, the main issue wasn't whether I manufactured anything for my former sister-in-law, it was the money that my brother left his son. So whilst I felt it was an overreaction to their behavior to withhold gifts, I came to the conclusion that I was underreacting to her husband's comments regarding my nephew's money. So I contacted the solicitor involved and pushed more responsibility onto them for signing off on money being withdrawn from the trust. She is required to enforce the trust's documentation fully, and this has meant no more withdrawing money without explicit proof that it was for my nephew's benefit. To my former sister-in-law's credit, she understood why I did this. She was sensible enough to see these boundaries were not my doing, but the insurance company's. And nothing has changed in regards to our relationship and the time that I spend with my nephew. Unfortunately, her husband took things badly and hasn't spoken to me since. On top of this, for the following months, he became incredibly petty regarding money. He would track to the last penny everything my nephew ate, drank, or played with. He was doing things like putting restaurant orders through my nephew's food on a separate receipt, or keeping track of prescription charges just so he could be in a position to claim the maximum value from the trust. The stress of raising their twins seems to have stifled this. Despite all the tracking, I've not been asked to sign off on anything thus far, but those receipts could still be claimed for. It's unfortunate, but I can't protect this money from legitimate, if petty, claims. I also fully expect the house bought with my brother's money would go to the husband were my sister-in-law to die, given their children together. She owns it outright with no strings attached. I've kept a close eye on how my nephew is being treated, and by all accounts, this hasn't trickled down to how my sister-in-law and her husband treat him at all. This seems to have been kept as a disagreement between adults regarding money, and my mother, who regularly babysits, claims her husband appears to be continuing to treat my nephew like his own. Despite that, our faith in my nephew's money being the safety net that it was always intended to be has been shaken. So my recently departed grandmother got the ball rolling on starting a second, much more ironclad pool of money for my nephew. It's nothing overly elaborate, just money my late brother would have been entitled to, skipping straight to my nephew. Ideally, this won't have to be relied upon, but between what my grandmother set aside and our mother's intended will, my nephew will have enough for a head start in life regardless of what happens to his existing money. It isn't a perfect solution, but when it comes to inheritance of my family money, there rarely is. Oh, and in what's kind of become a side issue, I made the furniture in the end. In the comments, Red Earache says, "This new husband to the sister-in-law is so incredibly petty. I do think the favoritism is going to show in the future. Glad that the rest of the family is trying their best to combat it." I agree, especially if he's going out of his way to separate payments for the nephew from the rest of the family. Even if he never submits a single receipt, I would think that there's no way a kid wouldn't eventually notice that and start drawing sad conclusions. And in doing so, telling nephew, "You aren't my son. Your dad is dead, and his money needs to be paying for you, not my money." And this is so pathetic from the husband. Trust money should not be covering normal day-to-day expenditure like food and medicine. Good shit on OP and his family on ensuring the new husband can't use the money at his own leisure. Nephew money is not and will never be the family money for the sister-in-law and her husband. At least the sister-in-law isn't trying to find any loopholes or fight it. Sister-in-law could at least have told him off when he got separate receipts specifically for her son or thrown them away saying that he was being petty. But of course, that could push him to start claiming them. I think it's a decent half measure of a conclusion to this story. I still think that she married an idiot, knowingly married an idiot, not too long after the death of her ex-husband. Understandable, everyone moves on at their own pace, everyone deals with grief in their own ways, but I don't think marrying a petulant, vile child of a man is the way to move on from grief. That's all I'm saying. I think it's all but inevitable that it will become obvious that this nephew is an other. And yeah, he might treat that nephew like his child now, but given this schism that has started so early, I don't think it's likely that it's going to change. Petty assholes like this guy will not change unless given very good reason to do so. I weep for the future of that child if things do not change, but I hold out hope that they will. Thank you, OP, for the story. I'm enraged. I'm emotional. I feel terribly bad for this child, but I know that you and your family will look out for him and ensure that he doesn't feel other than, at least in the rest of the family. So thank you for doing that, and again, thank you for the story. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.